Hi, Katharina.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. It's hot. I'm happy about the weather. Like probably everybody.
So happy about the weather. I'm so excited about this conversation. We've been just postponing for so long for
Oh
this
my God. It was
opinion.
like I think this is our fourth try also.
This never happened to me in this way. Like just having something that is being postponed, and for me, it's a sign. Like, well, there's a part of me that is dreading this conversation.
Oh my God, that does make me feel good now.
And I think that's the exact reason why we should dive deep into it to see
All
where this
right.
goes.
All right.
Um, I want to invite you to start by introducing yourself and telling us who you are.
Okay, so my name is Katharina Dalka. I'm born and raised German. I've lived quite a long time in France and now I'm based in London. I'm the CEO and founder of StellarOne. It's a consulting company that provides investment and strategy advisory in tech. So we are doing a lot of things related to corporate finance. And I'm also the chairwoman and co-founder of a fintech called Didon that is based in Switzerland. So it's a fintech that provides artificial intelligence services to the banking sector. So very money-oriented professional life.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to tell just a few words about myself, and then we can dive deep into this conversation. So I'm the founder of Ishtar Collective and Ishtar Empowers, companies dedicated to building platforms and supporting organizations in their platform strategy, ecosystem development, and also for the Ishtar Empowers part, the leadership development within organizations and individuals. So I'm passionate about taking back our power, how we take back our power, especially as women, but also by taking back our power by building organizations that are different from what we were before. I'm also a partner in a medtech startup called Glow, and we support doctors and in their prescribing and diagnostic by providing them with an AI tool to help them do the work, their daily work. About empowerment. This is important, especially for women. Why is it important for us now to have a conversation around money? Can you tell us more? I want to know your thoughts about this.
Oh my God, that's just such a loaded question. I have so much to say about it. It's like, so, wow, where to start? I think that I'm making a general statement for a start. I think in general, women are inhibited, and I'm using this very strong word on purpose, inhibited in speaking about money, managing money, and dealing with money, which is different from managing money. And there are a couple of reasons to this, which are partially internal, partially external. We get to that a little bit later in the conversation. And I just think that needs to stop, because overall, for starts, it's a question of gender equality. And second of all, I think it's ultimately beneficial to everybody in an economic sense of the term. And if I say everybody, I mean it in like a societal way, like women and men.
As a collective, it is important. Like it's time to go there and to change this. Because I want to go back to the what generated this conversation. Why we're here today? Because it all started when I called you one day, and I was having this huge negotiation with a potential client. I was just asking. Asked for like a very for daily rate, like very high daily rates, in my opinion. And asking for that rate came up from a conversation with you, because like you gave me permission to ask for that. Like you said, women, you've been just like, you're an expert in your domain, you can go there, you can ask for this rate. I was just so, okay, I'm gonna do it, just ask for it. And I asked this client about like these are my daily rates, and he didn't even blink. It was like, just
And I was so
All
proud of
right,
you.
okay. So, yeah, I was like, and it was like, oh, really? He's not even
I was
negotiating
like, yes,
myself.
you did it.
And I was doubting myself. Maybe I should just change the amount.
That was
Is
so rewarding.
everything okay?
Honestly, I was like, I loved seeing you win. I was just like, yes, she did it. That was so great.
I was so happy. So excited to tell you about it. And I went like, it gave me such a rush of adrenaline. I left this
True.
conversation, it was like a late night call. We finished around 8 p.m., joined friends for dinner. I was like, I just negotiating this thing and it's twice the amount of what I ask for habitually, as a consultant, and it's this amount and I'm excited and let's go for it. And I looked over, just around the table and my friends were just, it was awkward silence.
Yeah, I remember
like,
that.
Oh my God. And I was like, okay, what's happening? Everybody felt awkward. It's like, I felt like I was naked in that room.
Yeah, you told me. And I was like, oh, okay. What happened there? I think it's, I think it's just not, this is not down to you. This is down to like the general awkwardness that people in general feel when talking about money, and more specifically women feel about when speaking about money. I think this is just I'm sorry you had to experience that situation, but like I don't think that's down to you. I mean, you did what you had to do and there's nothing to be ashamed of,
But it's also, I had nothing to be ashamed of, but it took me 3 days to unpack the shame that came up from there.
Yeah, true.
Just like, where does it come from? Why is it here? Why am I feeling shame for talking about this? This is just so awkward. Where does it come from?
Yep.
And I think it's the next question, next part of the conversation. It's about first the cultural differences, about what is, how to say this in English? What is, de quoi l'argent est-il le nom? What does,
I don't know how to translate this in English. I don't think there's a 100% equivalent to this in English, but it's just like, I think there are so many social influences to this, right? So first of all, there is a strong religious influence to this, right? Yeah. Protestant, Catholic, Muslim, whatever, the way people perceive money. And in general, there's something about you are rich and this is bad. You are rich, you should feel guilty about it and give it to the poor. So there's already like a very strong socio-religious pressure on this. Mm-hmm. And then second of all, so I've lived in 3 different countries, and I've realized that there are different ways of perceiving money. When I lived in France, and I'm being very straightforward with this, when I lived in France, I was always perceived as, okay, you talk about money, this is bad. There's like a cultural thing too. In France, money is dirty. People that are rich are not good people. And now I'm living in London. London is an extremely business-driven place where everybody is seeking for economic growth, and where it's just so normal to be rich, in a nutshell. It's just so normal and like people that make good money out of their living are seen as examples rather than, social parias.
Yeah.
So there's this cultural, and we're only speaking about external influences, and then there's the whole educational part that comes into play, and the gender part, which is more like an internal thing. It's like, how have you been raised in terms of speaking about money, managing money? What have your parents taught you when you were small? There's also that gender bias where consciously or unconsciously women are often taught like, no, you're not supposed to value yourself, and you are not supposed to ask for things, and you are not supposed to ask for money. It's a bit like you're constantly downplayed in one way or the other. So it's a very, very complex situation, very complex set of rules and things that are put upon us that make us feel that shame. And it all, feeds into each other.
It's an alchemy. It's the mix of all of it that goes to, like, then you just find yourself with guilt and shame in a space where there is no need for it. You're like, guilt and shame while talking about money? What? Why?
And I was so proud of you. I'm like, yes, she did. Yes, this is great. And it was like, no, she will shame.
Yeah, and the hardest part wasn't about doing it. The hardest part was the afterwards. I mean, getting there, because I also lived. So this scene was in France, just to give a little bit of context. And I also lived in London, and I can see the cultural differences you're talking about, how it is different, how we perceive differently the leaps that people take in their lives, just changing social classes or leaping into the next step, evolving, upgrading your bank account, upgrading your life, upgrading everything, aspiring to more, how it is perceived in a positive way in London, and how it is difficult to do, especially for me as an Arab Algerian woman in France. It always felt like I was in a box that was too tight and I had to explode it to go to the next level.
Yeah.
And the glass ceiling, this is exactly what it looks like. You know, it's this limitation that we struggle to break, and it's all the conditioning you're talking about. My question to you, I know the emotional part, you said through your education, you never had really to deal about it. I want to tell us more about it, because I don't know any woman who grow up the way that the money is detached from emotions. It doesn't hold the weight of your worth. It's something else. So how did it happen? What does it look like?
I don't think it's detached from my worth. I think that, and it's not unemotional. I wouldn't say that. I think there are two things to this. The first thing is, it's like, it comes from my education, as I told you in a prior conversation, meaning that I've been educated in a way, and by my father and by my mother, to discuss money. And I'm speaking about the bare minimum, like, you know, discussing my pocket money, discussing how much pocket money I want, how much pocket money I need, and why. And I was having these conversations with my mother and with my dad. So I'm actually used to, as a woman, to speak about money with men throughout my education. And that's actually one thing that I really value right now, because like, I don't have this gender bias when I speak about money. I'm not intimidated speaking about money when I have a man in front of me. I think there's one thing, and the other thing, and I had this conversation with a friend of mine, Sonia Mavuna, who is an M&A lawyer that I've also introduced to you. And we said to each other, we are lucky we are working in a profession where we speak about money the whole day. And we're not speaking about £100 or £200. We are speaking about 10 million, 12 million, 30 million. So, you know, it becomes a bit of how could I say that? It becomes a commodity to a certain extent.
I lost you for a little while. I'm back. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. And you are back. This is not ideal. So what did you say?
You were talking. I was Sonia Mavuna.
Oh yeah, Sonia Mavuna, who is an M&A lawyer.
Yeah, we were talking about Sonia Mavuna.
Yeah, and it's like, we had this conversation, and she said, like, we're actually lucky because we are speaking about money in our profession the whole day. And when we talk, we're not talking about 200, 300, 400 pounds. We're talking about 10 million, 12 million, 100 million. We're talking about projects that are worth, I don't know, 150K. So it's like really big sums.
Yeah.
And money becomes, in this case, money becomes unemotional.
And a commodity. That was the
and a commodity. Indeed, it's a commodity. So it's very detached from the whole. So first of all, I think we see how much money is transiting in general, and that gives us a good way to compare of what we get out of the pie, right? And I think that was a
Mm-hmm.
conversation, that was an important part of the conversation we had, because I said, like, your ADRs are too low because this and that and the other. And you all of a sudden you had a comparison, right? So this is one reason why it's so important to talk about money. So first of all, we have a comparison. And second of all, once again, it's just by talking about it, it becomes normal.
Yeah, normalizing the conversation about money.
Yeah.
Normalizing discussion about the rates, the comparison, the markets we're in, and what our skills, how our skills are valued, and do the work basically, instead of letting others give value to our work.
Indeed.
Just do the work to evaluate and set the scale. And that's a huge shift that was a huge shift for me. It's like, it's not the other, it's not your clients who's going, putting a price on your work.
No.
What is your, your price on your work? In which market? Where? What are the skills? All the studies you did? All the everything. How do you give value to this? Because I'm thinking in terms of framework that we could offer to women who would be listening in terms of work. And a first step, if we had to think of it as, step-by-step program to deprogram our, to deprogram or to unpack a program to deprogram our money beliefs, our money distortions, our money limitations. How do we identify them? The first one, I think, because when I was listening to your education and just comparing to how it went, and that's a very vulnerable part of my education, because all the conversations around money or between my parents or with myself was always conflictual. It was always complicated. It was only a topic of conflict, and we weren't lacking, but it was a topic of insecurity and so much emotions, and a huge topic of conflict between my parents, within my family in general, and with my family, and bigger, not just my parents, but also the bigger picture in the family. So just hearing you talk, I realized how it was like the elephant in the room all the time. And so start unpacking the money conversation. Like a first question would be, how in your family, how were you educated around money? Did you have like a proper education? Did you have proper conversations around that? Or was it always complicated and difficult and hurtful and painful to talk about it? What were the emotions when money was discussed in your family? How did your parents talk about it? How did they manage it? Were you lacking money? Did you feel frustrated? Did you feel lack constantly? Did you feel expansion of, was it a problem within your family, or was it just always on the side because like money was managed and everything? All of these questions, if we just sit with it, we can just see if there's a problem that needs to be dealt with, explored, or should we maybe just move forward and go to the next step of the program of deprogramming?
I think there's like, check what is the state of the art of your internal money manager, let's call it that way, is very important. And I think that's the first step to something that I consider as key in the whole process, is take responsibility. Because in our society, for a very, very, very long time, women have been educated not to take responsibility for money. And that is a twofold thing. First of all, is you don't have the space to take care of yourself economically. The guy is doing this. This is one thing. But on the other thing, it also pushed women into a comfort zone where they think, okay, I don't need to take care of this, right? And so it's a twofold thing. It's too easy to say, I can't do this. I think that like we are in a place as women in our society where there are so many free resources. There are good paid resources. There are so many conversations to be listening to. There are so many people to talk to. It's like, you can educate yourself from an emotional point of view, but also from a technical point of view. And it doesn't need to be like my training as a corporate finance professional can just be the basics to understand. It's not out of reach. We all have a brain. Like, and like, I want to demystify the whole thing of, technicality of finance. Everybody can understand this. It's not, you don't need to study market finance and become a trader of commodities to manage your finance, or to manage your professional finance, or to raise your ADRs, or to negotiate. It's not that complicated, and don't let anybody else tell you anything else. It's not. It's like,
no, it's not.
You don't need to be Einstein to understand things.
I love this. So I'm just noting, step 1 was education, noticing, being aware. And second step was taking your power back, connecting to your money manager. And I love this because, I mean, especially since I started coaching, the first thing is just look at your life. Where do you feel fulfilled? Where do you not feel fulfilled? And if you don't feel fulfilled, you can just go explore, study it, and take your power back. And it's all about skills, like either soft skills or hard skills, but it's about skills. And what you're talking about, just there's all this belief that numbers, I don't understand numbers. Numbers are too complicated.
I know,
this
is nonsense.
Complete nonsense. So now is the part of the skills. Why is it so important to be in skill up mode in the topics we were put out of as women for millennia?
So I think that skills give confidence. And I give you a very concrete example of myself. There are negotiations that I handle on a daily basis, and there might be negotiations of deals, and that's M&A deals. There are negotiations about commercial partnerships. There are negotiations about commercial deals, collaborations. All of this is negotiation, and all of this includes a financial element and an emotional element. So let's put the emotional element aside. From a technical point of view, some deals are more complicated than others. And obviously, I'm a human being. So I'm like, okay, this is complicated. And from an experience point of view, the more I educate myself about the subject, from a technical point of view, the more I understand the business model, the more I understand the revenue flows, the more confident I feel, and the better I manage the negotiations, obviously, right? So knowledge gives confidence. And it's a vicious circle, telling yourself, I will never understand that, so I don't go for it, so I don't have the confidence. It's a vicious circle that drags you down into a black hole of non-confidence.
Yeah. I'd like to make an analogy with something else that might seem easier to unpack. It's like, for me, not dealing with money. It's like having dirty laundry that is just packed in a corner that we're not dealing with because we don't know how to do laundry. We don't know how to just take the clothes from there and put them in the machine and put the product in it. And it's basically reading our accounts, reading our numbers, and having the skills to just be able to have the minimal literacy to manage our money. Having it in the corner and let it stink and just get bigger.
I love the analogy.
See, and it's in the corner of your mind or your conscious or your space or your home, and it doesn't feel good, dude. Like, just go, you do your laundry.
It doesn't, absolutely not.
And at some point you need a new clothes, like you need your clothes to be clean, right?
I love the analogy. Very good example.
So you were talking about it, I was like, it's exactly the same. So my next question is also, because we're talking about things that are individual and also collective. And we are unpacking millennia of us out of the money conversation, but also millennia of women working for free. Because being out of the money conversation, it's because we were domesticated. And in a sense that
Domesticated, okay.
But it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
concretely, we were. I mean, the women's space or the female space was home.
Yeah, true.
Only the domestic sphere. In that sense, we were domesticated because the public sphere was held by men. They held the agora in antique Greece. They were
Yeah.
speaking out. They were handling the public
Yeah.
life of the family,
True.
and women were handling the domestic space. So being domesticated took a few skills from us because we couldn't speak in public. We weren't confronted to the external world as much as men, and we weren't working, creating value, or what was considered as valuable in a society, because growing children and educating children was not.
True.
But all the work that was done at home, which was the management of the small unit or business unit that is a home, managing it, growing the kids, taking them to this and this, and doing and the couple and all the organizational skills and everything that is related to the domestic were not considered as skills that are manageable. The collaboration, the empathy, the care, caring for the children, caring for the elders, caring for everyone for free all the time. And the money was completely out of it. So when we start going out to the world and building the world on the side of women, which is very recent and started very recently, and we become wild because we are undomesticated now, and we go in the wilderness and just start impacting the world, the external world, with our domestic skills. We don't know how to ask for money because for millennia we were never paid for anything we did. Everything was considered as normal, free, and half of the population worked for.
True, very true.
So how do we recover from that?
I'm a bit biased about this subject, I think. So I'm a bit biased. I was raised by a stay-at-home mom. I think she did the hardest job in the world. Really.
Yeah.
She has been doing a harder job that I will ever do, and I do a bloody hard job. But I'm like, to be honest, she's been raising 2 little kids on her own while my father was working. So I have the utmost respect for her skills. May that be organizational, may that be managerial, may that be empathetic wise, whole emotional intelligence. So I think these are skills that need to be valued more in our society and in general, and it's not going to come alone. It's like, this is something that needs to be pushed on a massive basis. And I think that slowly but surely, the very male-driven business environment, or business environment that is driven by male codes, let's put it that way, will slowly shift a little bit into that direction. But I think it will take some time, and it needs a big push. It's not something that will come naturally, because until now, the male code driven business environment has worked out fine, right? There was no necessity for change. It has worked out fine for half of the population. It has worked less so for another part of the population. So I think these are all skills that need to be identified and valued.
That was exactly the direction I wanted to take this question towards. Is really, how do we start giving value? How do we start valuing? It's exactly the same thing that you were saying, just valuing our skills and putting a price on them instead of letting the world do it for us and taking the power. But how? I can, sorry to interrupt, just one of the answers I have is the community. Because the work we've been doing together, like for me, that was a problem for me, not for you. Like giving value to my work, it's still a problem. I'm still into it, still trying to giving value to the work I do, especially because it's considered more feminine skills. So it's more difficult to package and put out there.
I slightly disagree with you about that.
Oh, okay. Tell me. I'm excited.
Because I think we started this conversation already. Let's say you bring to the table an organizational skill, okay? into a specific project. It is, you can easily, so value, we talk about money, right? So it's a value in terms of money and what kind of output, financial output you bring to the table with your organizational skills.
Yeah.
When you come up and they say, okay, this is a project that has been scheduled for 3 months, I am able to push it through with my organizational skills in a month and a half with these resources, you will save this amount of money. And that is clearly a skill that is, it's valued to a certain extent, but let's say it's in the corner of undervalued skills, right? It's something you can put a price tag on.
Yeah.
Just as much as it is community building, taking your business, right? You say that, okay, in the amount of, like, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months, I can build this amount of community members and they bring this and that to the table and you'll make this amount of money out of it. And even if it's just a range, it doesn't matter. You have a range. So worst case scenario is the low part of the range. Best case scenario is the upper part. And you can price accordingly. You can put a price tag on everything as long as it is principled argumentation.
And that's where we need space to learn these principles.
True. That's true.
That's exactly, I mean, I feel the need for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also a space where I think you can provide lots of value because you have this negotiation. I mean, I'm not getting into that. I want you to get into what you are creating for whom and why. And if you have a story also, of how is it born and why are you creating this? Why is it important for you?
So with StellarOne, by the way, StellarOne is an entirely female team. So we are a female team of corporate finance professionals.
We love to hear that.
At one point in time, I realized this kind of gap of technical knowledge about finance and negotiation and valuing, because this is what it is. Negotiation is partially about. It's about finding an agreement that suits to everybody, but also valuing your contribution to the deal to the right extent. Yeah. And I realized that this skill, as you said, is often missing because you don't really, like this conversation that we're having right now. Okay, organizational part, you cut down the execution time of a project by half with your skills. It's not necessarily something that everybody sees, especially not women, right? And so we created a training module to help women with this kind of reflection, right? And the training module was born out of this, this realization that apparently there are skills that are missing in the market. And so what we do over this training model is actually, we first of all teach the principles of negotiation. So that's like really a technical part where we say like, okay, this is how a negotiation works. This is what you bring to the table. This is what the other part brings to the table. This is how you can calculate your value. So it's a very technical part. And then there is a second part to it, which is more, okay, what are your biases as a woman? So it goes more into the socio-cultural conditioning. What is your education? How do you manage negotiations? Be aware you negotiate on a daily basis. You just don't know it. When you go to the market, you negotiate, typically. You negotiate on a daily basis in little situations that you can easily where you can easily use the skills into other and transpose these skills into other situations. So there are two parts to this negotiation training, and it's also an interactive thing that because I strongly believe in exercises. You need to get out there and do it.
Oh yeah.
You need to just get your confidence together and ask for stuff. If you don't ask, you won't get. And if somebody doesn't agree with you, they will always let you know. But at least you've asked.
And that's what happened, by the way, with the advice you gave me, because it was like on a phone call. And one of my strengths is putting it into action right away. And that was, and otherwise, if you don't get, because it was uncomfortable, I wasn't used to asking this kind of amounts. I was going into a direction. I'm talking about another conversation we had where I was almost doing work for free. And you were like, no. And it was like, okay.
Don't do this.
And it's like, okay, you're right. So I was just I hang up and it's like, this is not working, uncomfortable. I started sweating. I'm like, okay, this is so uncomfortable. I need to do it. So I called. I was like, I'm not doing the work as we're supposed to. I'm asking for this amount. So you're able to do that. Like you put people in motion because it makes so much sense. It is so rational and you do it with such a precision that there is no excuse left. There is no, I mean, I couldn't even tell myself the story of, you're doing it for the community.
No, no.
It wasn't working anymore. It didn't make sense after talking to you.
No, well, I had this experience a couple of times. I mentioned is like one of my friends came to me and said, like, look, I need to renegotiate my salary because we want to buy a house, so I need to get this amount of salary to get the mortgage. And I actually prepared her for the salary negotiation, and she got the mortgage.
We love the wins. We love the wins.
Yes. And then there was another friend of mine, and she wanted to leave the company. And she in France you have this arrangement where you can mutually agree to leave, and then they are supposedly giving you a certain amount that is calculated on a legal basis. I'm like, nah, you don't leave with that amount. We're going to go to negotiate. And we did. We got a couple of I think we got 20K more out of it.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, but I'm always like, nah, you don't leave like this. Don't do this.
Mm-hmm. I saw that. It is, and I'm giving you, because I am the niche of your the course you built, and typically these kind of negotiations are all the spaces I constantly avoid. I have like an avoidance syndrome where I don't have I'm serving, all the stories about being a good person by doing some work. So I don't have to dive into the money. These are all the stories I went through all my life. So the deprogramming that is going on right now is just about that, and locating the spaces where I'm saying, I'm not negotiating because first of all, I don't even know that it's possible to negotiate in certain spaces. And second of all, there's a lazy part that doesn't want to deal with money, like really giving away my power and taking it back is a constant aware effort, because the default mode is not looking at it. It's just being everything's okay. I'm not looking at it. So the part after the beliefs and the conditioning, what follows? What's next? Because I interrupted you when you were talking about the exercises and going into movement.
I think I also want to debunk a myth about money, which is you're not a bad person because you ask for money, and you're not a bad person because you want to own money.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be morally charged.
No, it's not. And what the heck? I want to buy myself diamonds and a Lamborghini and a house and be comfortable and not worry. And there's nothing bad about this. And hell yeah, I want to do this. And I will do everything that is in my power to do this.
Yeah.
And I do not feel bad about it even 1 second. It's like, I would love to drive around in a Lamborghini. I would feel so sexy.
I love it. Yeah, it's a game, the game of life. Are we playing or are we not? I am playing the game.
And it's like every once in a while in London when I walk and I see like a lady like in a big car, I'm like, yes, sis, I want to be you. And I don't see this from a jealous point of view. It's like, you made it, man. It's like, you're my inspiration.
Yeah. It seems just like it's not just a joke what you just said, because she's a trailblazer, because she's doing something none of our ancestors did. When you do it for the first time and you're doing something that other women are not doing because they weren't conditioned to do it, and the default mode allows us to just drive the Fiat 500. Like, no, I'm going for the Lamborghini. She's a trailblazer, right?
Absolutely.
She's
and I mean,
running
it's like
her own trail.
I just picture how much of headwind she must have been given, because I realize this in negotiations where I'm like, 100% of the times, 99% of the times, I'm surrounded by men in these conversations, and they're all older than me and coming from, I don't know, investment banking or successful entrepreneurs, and like, I need to step up and I need to be double as good as them and double as affirmative as them, because otherwise I don't get my word through in these conversations. And I very often get the tag of, oh, wow, she's so hard and she's such a tough negotiator. I'm actually not. I'm playing the game that they are playing for centuries. And I think there's a big thing about, don't bother about what people say about you in these conversations, because what it is about is what you need and what you want. And that is very, very important. It's not because somebody else says, you are so harsh, you are not worth it. It doesn't mean it's the truth.
Oh, let's unpack this. The people pleaser.
Yeah.
Women and people pleasing. Women, our conditioning, and people pleasing, and how the deprogramming part needs absolutely to include the people pleaser. What part of you is not saying something or compromising your integrity just to look good, or to please a person you don't even care about, or to look good in front of someone that doesn't care about your own good? So why are we people pleasing, and how do we just identify the spaces where we are? Because what you're talking about is just not caring about having this tag of being hard, negotiating hard, or not being appreciated, while as women we were educated to be smiling,
well, the one thing is, you go into these conversations with a goal. You don't go there to please, you don't go there to be pretty, you go and get there to get the bag.
Amen.
This is your objective. This is what you prepare for. This is what you work for. You want to be 75 and be 100% comfortable in your retirement. So this is what you go for. You don't go to please, to look good, to get other people's validation or opinion. You go there to strike a deal, and the deal, obviously, there's a whole part to the negotiation itself where, it's a common agreement and everybody needs to be happy, etc., etc. But from a personal perspective, you go there because you have an objective, and the objective is get the bag. And there's, once again, it's circling around. There's nothing wrong about it. Absolutely nothing. A woman who values herself is the best thing. I love to see this. The best. Sometimes I'm in negotiations where I meet women, right? And they're negotiating with me and they're super hard. And inside of myself, I'm just smiling like, oh, yes, I love this. I love to have this conversation with you because, as much as I want to take a little bit from you and you want to take a little bit from me, I see you valuing yourself. And I'm almost like, I'm just like, oh, sis, let's stop this for a second and have a coffee,
Yeah. This is so good. It's just so good, because valuing ourselves we're talking about trailblazing and valuing ourselves and setting our own value instead of letting the world around us setting it for us.
Absolutely.
While these last millennia, we know the worth wasn't there. So why are we still waiting? What are we waiting for exactly?
And I think this is where there's the power of a community of women, and the power of people like me or Sonia, or, where we are in a lucky position where we have been educated with very little bias, and we are in a profession where we handle money so much that we can, give to the community, and, just having this conversation about, you don't need to please. Not everybody needs to like your objectives, but it's your objectives. And the most important thing is that you get them through,
And when you own it, you're not even confronted. You don't even see the people who are not liking it.
I see them. So usually what I do in negotiations, when I get a tag, oh, she's a harsh woman specifically, I actually call it out. When I get this comment, I'm like, you would never say that if I was a man, because all I'm being here is 100% professional, doing my job with an objective. So if I was a man, you would never ever say this about me. So I'm at the stage where I'm like, I'm calling this out. I'm just not ignoring it anymore.
This is incredibly empowering. Just we keep neglecting how powerful it is to stand out for ourselves, giving a value for ourselves. It is a matter of sovereignty, you know. When I talk about the Ishtar Empowers project and the importance of community, is a community that helps you see the blind spots, all the spots where you're not seeing, all the spots where you are giving away your power. And taking back sovereignty is just saying, no, this is my worth, this is who I am, calling out what needs to be called out, not caring about what other people say, and just having a goal. I love the goal. For me, it's the step 4. So I wrote down like the steps we came up with. The first one was education, going through our baggage and education. Second one was taking our power back. Step 3 was acquiring the skills. Step 4 was having a goal before a conversation, any conversation we have. And we find all of this in your course, right? I want you to tell us more. And I think
so typically the last part that you just mentioned, well, it's the other way around. We look at the technicality at in the first part. So this is the last 2 points that you mentioned, where it's like, you don't step into a money conversation without knowing what you want and what are your hard limits, right? How low are you willing to go, and beyond which limit you're not willing to go? That's a very, very important conversation to have with yourself. And then being able to sit at a table and say, no, I'm not doing this, I'm walking out, and with all the consequences that come with it, right? This is such an important conversation to have with yourself before actually walking into a room and talking to somebody about money.
May I just say something to add to this? Because it's a topic that comes up very often in coaching, and it's like, because many of us, women and men, are not able to identify their needs and are not able to know what they want. They don't even know how to. And that's also a skill to be learned. True. So they're not able to fix goals because they're not connected to their own needs. They don't know how to see them, identify them, because they spend their lives fulfilling other people's desires or society's expectations or teachers or whatever. So first step in your course is also about really self-awareness. What are your needs? What are your desires? Are you doing it for yourself? Because your value depends also on what you need and what you desire in your life. What are your standards? How are you setting your standards?
Absolutely. Actually, that can be taken from 2 perspectives. The first one is emotional, where you say like, this is my worth, my emotional worth. And then there's also the technical part where you say like, okay, I have a rent to pay, I have children to feed, I have a car to maintain, right? So I need to make this amount of money out of this amount of actions to be able to maintain my lifestyle. I have a retirement to prepare, you know? So they're actually the emotional part, and there's also what I call the technical part, the purely financial technical part, where it's actually relatively easy to say, this is what I want to get out of it, or this is what I need to get out of it. And once you have a hard limit, you can play with the soft limits of, I put this amount more as a negotiation margin, I put this amount more because I value my competencies, I have specific skills in the market, etc. So there's a whole conversation to be having around this.
Incredible. I'm really excited about I'm excited about this. Can you tell us where it's 2:32, so we're coming to the end. Would you like to say specific things to conclude? Where can we have more information about the course? Where can we find you? How can we reach out to you and your powerhouse team? And all the practical details to get this going and learn more about negotiating as a woman.
I think that for a start, before we get into the more detailed part, I would like to just wrap up on things that are important to me that I would like to transmit, which is, first of all, it's not bad to talk about money. Okay. It's okay to have needs and desires related to material things. You know, if they're not, some of us get happy over material things, and if they're not making us happy, they give us at least freedom. So that's absolutely fine. And the second thing is, you go into money conversations with an objective, and the objective is not to please. Okay, the objective is to do business in one way or the other, right? So whatever people say from a personal perspective, and sometimes you get attacks in negotiations, you know, they make like discriminating arguments or whatever, but it doesn't matter. You're there for an objective. And it's not an emotional matter. It's a matter of securing the bag. So these are the two things that I wanted to put out there because it's really important to me.
So important.
And so in terms of details, so I can be found on LinkedIn very easily, Katharina Dalka, so happy to connect. So does my team. You can also check out our website, www.StellarOne.biz. Our training sessions, so there will be planned soon with a specific date. So I will also put out information over LinkedIn. So feel free, and I'm happy to connect. Feel free to ask questions, and probably you'll have another money conversation with Soumeya too. So we'll see on specific. You'll take the training soon, so you can give a feedback on the training.
I think we will have a session on the training, just as my feedback to discuss what was uncomfortable, because I already did feel the discomfort just hearing you talk about it. Like,
oh my God.
How my default mode just wants to run away and say, I don't want to deal with this, please. Yeah, to wrap up, I want to, every person who's interested to let us know, because today is the first money conversation. We would love to keep this going. If you want us to talk about specific topic, just reach out, message us, comment, and we would love to go for it. I have a few topics in mind I would love to explore. Yeah, we are open to anything. The community is now called in. The community of women who would like to talk about money, get the skills where they can find them, and just start unpacking what needs to be unpacked and building the empires we need to build, and trailblazing together. So thank you very much for today.
Thanks for having me. I love this.
I
love talking about money. What can I say?
Me too. And I love talking to you. And we made it, and it wasn't even sure because we had some internet issues. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. Thank you, Katharina. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.